Analysts emphasize that the private sector should not be intimidated by the sanctions imposed on Rwanda by the international community and Western countries, especially since the current global business landscape is no longer solely dependent on Western markets. Adam Squizera with more.
Since the conflict between the Congolese M23 rebel group and the Democratic Republic of Congo Army (FARDC) intensified, senior DRC officials have been actively calling on the countries and the international community to impose sanctions on Rwanda. Dr. Alphonse Moudev, an expert in international law, explains that countries such as Belgium, the UK, and Canada have fallen into this trap due to their vested interests in the security crisis in the eastern DRC.
Umutekano muke ushobora kuba ari inyungu ku bantu benshi.
A security crisis can serve the interests of many actors, including armed dealers, those illegally exploiting the DRC's resources, and even segments of the international community that benefit from keeping people in refugee camps. Ultimately, there are numerous vested interests that could contribute to prolonging this crisis.
Zishobora kuba arizo zituma ikibazo cy'umutekano muke kitarangira.
Rwanda, on the other hand, views this as taking sides in the conflict, which does nothing to support the peace process envisioned by the African Union, the East African Community (AEC), and the SADC. On the other hand, Rwanda emphasizes that the coalition between the FARDC and the FDLR poses a direct threat to its security. Mukabalisa Germain reinforces this sense, stating that Rwanda will not compromise its security under any circumstances.
Sanctioning or suspending aid cannot eliminate our security threats. If the threat were solely tied to funding from that aid, one might argue that cutting it could be a solution. But if the response is sanctions, will that make Rwanda abandon its defensive measures? Should Rwanda accept being shelled just to avoid sanctions?
Michael Shakanyarwaya emphasizes that the global trade landscape is vast, allowing business operations to continue in other markets, even halted in certain countries.
If you want to stay with me and do business together, we'll do business together. But if you don't want to do business together with me, I'll look for other partner to do business with them. So the world is big, and this world we are into competition. So if today you don't want to do business with me, I'll look for other opportunities. So I was telling you, we have the plan A, we have plan B, we have plan D, up to Z.
He also highlights that Rwanda's history demonstrates resilience and Rwandans, especially those in the private sector, should not see this as a hindrance to progress. In an interview with RTS Info, Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, emphasized that Rwanda is not intimidated by sanctions, as the security of its citizens remains the country's top priority.
Nous n'avons pas peur d'être isolés diplomatiquement, nous n'avons pas peur de sanctions. Ce dont on aurait peur, c'est de laisser...
We don't fear diplomatic isolation, nor do we fear sanctions. What we fear is abandoning our country and our people to defenselessness. Rwanda will never allow history to repeat itself because of the genocidal forces that the DRC continues to sustain.
À cause de ces groupes génocidaires qui sont maintenant entretenus par le gouvernement congolais.
The government of Rwanda stated that Canada cannot claim to support regional peace efforts while blaming Rwanda for violations, without holding the DRC government accountable. This, Rwanda argues, only emboldens DRC to escalate attacks against its own civilians. In response, Rwanda reaffirmed that imposing measures against it will not resolve the conflict.